Good evening and welcome to Radio Fiji's News and Current Affairs program. And first, the news headlines. The manager of King's Hotel in Nambua appeared in the Suva Magistrates Court today, charged with the murder of the hotel's owner, Mr. Bob Amos. The funeral service for the late Minister for Foreign Affairs, Tourism and Civil Aviation, Mr. Chanati Mavua, will be held on Thursday morning at the Centenary Methodist Church in Suva. The Bus Operators Association will seek an increase in adult bus fares later this month. And the search is on for 6 men reported overdue from a fishing trip. On the world scene, in Paris, debate on the political balance of UNESCO's Executive Committee following United States withdrawal is continuing. The debate goes on amid demands by Australia and New Zealand to work with Asian rather than Western nations in the organization's Executive Council. In Ottawa, Canada, a 6-week-long meeting of 35 nations who signed the Helsinki Human Rights Agreement in 1975 has ended in discord, with Eastern Bloc countries turning down a Western proposal to meet regularly. The Stockholm-based International Peace Research Institute reported today that the 5 countries with nuclear weapons carried out 53 underground nuclear tests last year against 50 in 1983. And in Washington, the Pentagon has identified the man shot dead by hijackers of a TWA airliner and dumped on Beirut airport tarmac on Saturday. Later in this program, an interview with the Fiji ambassador in Tokyo, the annual craft fair, and a report on the hijack drama in Beirut. But now, with the time at 7:02, here's the local news in detail. The manager of King's Hotel in Nambua appeared in the Suva Magistrates Court this morning, charged with the murder of the hotel's owner, Mr. Bob Amos. Before the court was Mr. Bijendra Rao, aged 38, who is charged along with 5 others. The other 5 are Joshua Rambukawanga, 28, Jagdish Prasad, 43, Jainendra Prasad, 20, Jitendra Kumar, 18, all of Tavua, and Mr. Manohar Prasad, 38 of Suva. They were taken to court, handcuffed and escorted by senior police officers. Mr. Rao is a director of Amosi Limited, of which Mr. Amos was also a director. He is also the manager of Samambula Hotels Limited, which runs King's Hotel. Mr. Rao was represented by Suva lawyer Mr. Iqbal Khan, while Chief Magistrate Mr. Gordon Ward presided over the sitting. A large crowd gathered at the courtroom and corridors to get a glimpse of the 6 men. More from Francis Herman.
There was a lot of excitement when the 6 men were escorted into the courtroom. Police had to constantly quieten the crowd, who kept shouting abuse at the men. Police Prosecutor Deputy Superintendent Benny Navelli informed the court that more arrests would be made, as police were flat out with their investigations. However, Suva lawyer Mr. Khan objected to his client's arrest even before police investigations were complete. He said his client, Mr. Rao, was assaulted at the Central Police Station by one of the accused, Rambukawanga. He alleged that Mr. Rao's wife was forced to sign a statement or be locked up. At this, Mr. Ward said police reserved the right to make arrests as soon as they had sufficient grounds to charge the person concerned, even if investigations were still not complete. Mr. Ward granted a request by Mr. Khan that his client be segregated from the other 5. DSP Navelli informed Mr. Ward that it was dangerous for Mr. Khan to speak about the attack on Mr. Rao, as it would prejudice the trial. DSP Navelli was also ordered by Mr. Ward to look into a request by some of the accused that their families be given police protection. Mr. Ward then adjourned the case till the beginning of next month, when a date for a preliminary inquiry will be set. As the men were escorted out of the courtroom, scores of people closed in and abused them, but police intervened and sent the crowd away.
Francis Herman. The funeral service for the late Minister for Foreign Affairs, Tourism and Civil Aviation, Mr. Chanati Mavua, will be held at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning at the Centenary Methodist Church in Suva. Mr. Mavua's body is being accompanied from Auckland by his wife, Mrs. Male Mavua, a daughter, Mrs. Rosena Tuisu, a son, Mr. Sitiveni Mavua, Fiji's High Commissioner to New Zealand, Mr. Satyanand, and the Consul General in Auckland, Mr. Elecha Damu. They will arrive at Nosuri at 2:30 tomorrow afternoon and will be met by an official party led by the Deputy Prime Minister, Ratu David Thongnivalu, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Tomasi Vakatora, and 2 government ministers. Mr. Mavwa's body will then be given an official escort to his residence at Battery Road in Vayuto. The first official party to pay their last respects to late Mr. Mavwa will be headed by the Prime Minister Ratu Serkamisese Mara and Andi Lady Lala Mara, cabinet members and their wives. Mr. Mavwa will be buried on Thursday at the Suva Cemetery at 12 noon. Meanwhile, condolence messages are continuing to pour into the office of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from throughout the world. They include sympathy messages from representatives of India, Malaysia, New Zealand and Nauru governments. Condolence messages have also been received from Papua New Guinea, Tuvalu, the United Kingdom, the People's Republic of China and the European Economic Commission. In a tribute to the late Mr. Mavwa, the Fiji Trades Union Congress said Mr. Mavwa was a strong advocate of the Workers' Compensation Act and that they shared with his family the sorrow of his passing. It said it was during Mr. Mavwa's term as Minister for Labour that a number of important pieces of legislation with regards to the welfare of the working class were enacted. The Fiji Sugar Corporation Staff Association said Mr. Mavwa's deep conviction in the virtues of dialogue, his impartiality and patience had been singularly responsible for the resolution of many problems within the sugar industry. And an official of the Indian Alliance, parliamentarian Mr. K.R. Lachan, said Mr. Mavwa was a fair-minded and honest man whose behaviour and performance, both inside and outside the parliament, he will always cherish. At a special cabinet meeting today, a minute's silence was observed as a mark of respect for the late Mr. Mavwa. The Bus Operators Association is preparing its submissions to seek increases in adult bus fares. The submissions will be made to the Transport Control Board at the end of the month. The Association Secretary, Mr. Pramendra Pandey, said increases are being sought because of the sharp rise in operating costs. Mr. Pandey said the government has rejected earlier submissions from the bus owners on subsidies for fuel, spare parts and tyres. The owners, he said, had no alternative but to seek increases in adult fares. The search is on for 6 men reported overdue from a fishing trip. The men, all from Bunivi Hill at Nosori, left early yesterday to fish in Mbau waters. They were due back in the afternoon. Police say the men were on board an 18-foot punt powered with an 18-horsepower outboard motor. People around the Mbau waters have been asked to keep a lookout for the fishing men. The Senate met briefly this morning and adjourned until tomorrow. After the first reading of several money bills, which were approved in the House of Representatives sitting last month, the senators paid tribute to the late Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Chanathe Mavwa, and a former Attorney General, Mr. Andrew Deuki. Mr. Mavwa died in Auckland on Sunday, and Mr. Deuki died last week in Australia. The Vice President of the Senate, Senator Ratu Tevita Vakalalambure, presided during today's session in the absence of the President, Senator Wesley Barrett. Senator Barrett is in Kiribati attending a conference. The Minister for Employment and Industrial Relations, Mr. Mohammed Ramzan, says the tripartite forum needs refurbishing to make it more appropriate in current conditions. He made the comment in Geneva while addressing the 71st session of the International Labour Conference. He said the forum has been an outstanding success from 1976 until recently. Mr. Ramzan said the role of the government and employers need a sharper definition, while worker representation needed to be expanded to include a broader base. He said the current difficulties in tripartite policy-making are directly linked to the lack of broader workers' participation. Mr. Ramzan said special considerations should also be given to the needs of workers outside the wage and salary structure, and that it is because of this the government is putting more emphasis on rural development. Police have still not established the identity of a woman who was killed in a road accident near Navua at the weekend. The woman, in her late 20s, is believed to have been picked up by one of the cars involved in the accident in which 6 people were killed. Police have appealed to the public for any information about her. A 23-year-old man is recovering at the Lautoka hospital after a truck he was repairing rolled over him. He is Mr. Muhammad Rafiq of Wairimbatia in Lautoka, who fractured his ribs in the incident. His condition is said to be satisfactory. Fiji is currently experiencing unusually cool weather, with midday temperatures today around 19 degrees. The principal forecasting officer at the Nandi Weather Office, Mr. Mike Laidlaw, said temperatures are about 5 degrees cooler than they have been for the last few days. Vasiti Sikivel asked him the reason for the cold weather.
Well, we have a weak trough to the west of the Fiji group, and this is bringing a lot of cloud. And this, combined with surface winds, which are bringing cold air from a depression far to the southeast of Fiji, that's about 3,000 kilometers away, it's causing the lower temperatures. Now, the cloud restricts the heating of the sun during the day, and also evaporation of rain produces further cooling.
How much longer do you expect this cool weather to last?
Well, in western and northern parts of the larger islands, we're expecting that the trough that I mentioned earlier will move across the group tomorrow, and the daytime temperatures should become higher. In the southeastern parts of those islands, it will probably not be before Thursday that the daytime temperatures rise. The nighttime temperatures will probably remain rather cool.
All right, thank you very much.
Vasiti Sikivel talking to Mr. Mike Laidlaw of the Nandi Weather Office. The Fiji Visitors Bureau hopes to attract more Australians to visit Fiji following a 4-day promotional show in Sydney this week. The promotion is part of a holiday travel show which gets underway at the Sydney Cricket Ground tomorrow. A group of 30 people from the Fiji tourist industry is participating in the promotion. The Dance Theatre of Fiji will also be featured in the program. The General Manager of the Fiji Visitors Bureau, Mr. Malakai Ulake, is leading the Fiji delegation. The Fiji Football Association grossed about $52,000 in gate takings from the weekend's Battle of the Giants tournament in Suva. FFA's treasurer, Mr. Jitendra Maharaj, said the takings were much higher than last year. He said the Suvam Bar Challenge match, played for $1,000, helped to draw more home crowd yesterday. The next major tournament will be the Cup Winners' Cup, to be played in Nandi during the August bank holiday weekend. Meanwhile, victory celebrations will be held at Lautoka tomorrow to mark Lautoka's first win in the Battle of the Giants tournament. Supporters, fans, players and officials of the Lautoka Football Association will march from Namoli Park at 3 p.m. to Churchill Park. At Churchill Park, they will be met by the association's patron, Mr. Abdul Yusuf, and the vice patron, Mr. David Pickering. The president of the Lautoka Football Association, Mr. Iqbal Khan, said the program will include presenting the players to the gathering and speeches. The president of the Lautoka Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Natwar Vag, has appealed to shop owners to close their shops from 3 o'clock tomorrow to participate in the victory procession. Lautoka are last year's inter-district champion and also won the 1984 National League competition. And now, with the time at 14 minutes past 7, here's the weather bulletin compiled at Nandi at 3:30 this afternoon. Forecasts for the Fiji group up to midnight tomorrow. Cloudy with further rain, but clearing about the northern and western parts of the main islands tomorrow. Continuing cool. Moderate southeasterly winds, moderate seas. For the outlook for the Fiji group for Thursday, mainly fine weather. Forecast for Navua, Suva, Nosuri, periods of rain gradually easing tomorrow. Continuing cool. For the outlook for Thursday, cloudy. Forecast for Nandi, Lautoka and Ba, some light rain tonight, gradually clearing tomorrow. Continuing cool. For the outlook for Thursday, mainly fine. Forecast for Rotuma, light easterly winds with slight seas. Occasional rain possibly with some thunderstorms. For the outlook for Rotuma for Thursday, a few showers. And now we look at the world news in detail. In Paris, debate on the political balance of UNESCO's Executive Committee following United States withdrawal is continuing. The debate goes on amid demands by Australia and New Zealand to work with Asian rather than Western nations in the organization's governing body. Australia and New Zealand have asked since 1983 to belong to the Asian and Pacific Group, one of the 5 groups that make up the Executive Council. But the 50 members of the Council have adjourned without making a decision and are expected to resume the 6th week of debate this year over the issue. The Asian Pacific Group currently allotted 8 of the Council's 50 seats, has agreed to include Australia and New Zealand on condition they get another seat. This means the Western nation group would have to give up one of its 10 seats, which include one vacated by the United States after it withdrew from the organization last year. In Ottawa, Canada, a 6-week-long meeting of the 35 nations who signed the Helsinki Human Rights Agreement in 1975 has ended in discord, with the Eastern Bloc countries turning down a Western proposal to meet regularly. It is the first time the nations have met since reaching the landmark accord. During the talks all through the weekend, Western and neutral nations tried to persuade the Eastern Bloc to agree to regular meetings. But Western delegates say the Soviet Union has stubbornly refused, arguing that the conference has no mandate to make such a recommendation. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Human Rights Commission, Richard Shifter, has however refused to label the closed-door conference as a failure. He says that what has come out of this conference is an honest recognition of basic philosophical differences between East and West. The Stockholm-based International Peace Research Institute reported today that the 5 countries with nuclear weapons carried out 53 underground nuclear tests last year against 50 in 1983. The Soviet Union headed the list with 27, followed by the United States with 15, France with 7, Britain with 2, and China with 2. No test was bigger than 150 kilotons, in conformity with the US-Soviet 1974 treaty, which has not been signed by France or China. SIPRI, which is financed by the Swedish Parliament, said that since 1945 there have been 1,493 nuclear tests, and 85% of them were carried out by the United States and the Soviet Union. In Washington, the Pentagon has identified the man shot dead by hijackers of a TWA airliner and dumped on Beirut airport's tarmac on Saturday. He was a U.S. Navy diver, Robert Stratham, aged 23, of Waldorf, Maryland. The Defense Department says his body has been flown from Beirut to the U.S. airbase at Torrejón in Spain, where it's been identified from service and medical records. Stratham joined the Navy in 1980 after graduating from high school and was attached to a construction battalion. Defense officials say Stratham had completed work in Greece and was heading back to the United States when the hijacking occurred. Argentinian Navy patrol boats seized a Japanese fishing vessel allegedly operating in territorial waters of the country's southern coast. A communique issued by the Navy Command in Buenos Aires said warning shots were fired across the bow of the boat, the Suzuki Maru 51, when it tried to flee, just before being caught yesterday. It said 2 naval patrol boats, along with Navy planes, detected the Japanese vessel 180 nautical miles east of Puerto Deseado, a port city 1,600 kilometers south of Buenos Aires. The territorial limit for fishing is 200 nautical miles. Swiss chemists yesterday began burning 3 tons of chemical waste containing the deadly poison dioxin, which leaked at Seveso in Italy 9 years ago. A spokesman for the chemical company, Siba Geiji, said its special furnaces in Basel would take 100 hours to complete the task. Swiss officials assured worried residents that the burnings were safe and could be halted immediately in case of problems. The waste contains about 200 grams of dioxin, estimated to be 10,000 times more deadly than cyanide. In the 1976 explosion at the Seveso factory, 30 people had suffered burns and liver and kidney complaints. An area of 1,800 hectares was also polluted, forcing hundreds of families to abandon homes. In Sao Paulo, Brazil Federal Police Chief Romeo Tuma says police suspect that the body of a man believed to be Nazi war criminal Joseph Mengele may have been mutilated before burial. Forensic experts from United States, West Germany, Israel and Brazil are examining the remains exhumed on 6th June to determine if they belonged to the infamous Angel of Death of the Auschwitz extermination camp, accused of sending hundreds of thousands of people to the gas chambers. Tuma says some of the 208 bones unearthed were broken, including the facial bones. Investigators also discovered a hidden attic at the house on the outskirts of the city where the man suspected to have been Mengele is believed to have lived from 1975 to 1979. And a London jeweler has found a novel way to stop thieves making off with a valuable diamond. He swallowed it. Jeweler Ken Markworth swallowed the stone worth $13,440 when two robbers jabbed a sawn-off shotgun into his back and threatened to kill him. And when asked, Markworth said he will let nature take its course to recover the stone. The time now is 21 minutes past 7, and you are tuned to Radio Fiji, listening to Fiji and the World, Radio Fiji's news and current affairs program, as we go behind the news. Japan is one of Fiji's main trading partners, but the balance is heavily in favor of Japan. Efforts are being made to promote exports from Fiji to Japan and also attract more Japanese visitors to Fiji. The Fiji Embassy in Tokyo has been actively engaged in promotional activities there. Ministry of Information's Walter Thomas was in Japan recently, and Fiji's ambassador there, Mr. Joe Gibson, gave him more details.
As you are aware, the trade with Japan is very much in favor of Japan. At the moment, as far as I can see, it's about 10-1 in Japan's favor. The efforts of this embassy have been mainly aimed at bridging this particular gap. And since my arrival here in February last year, there have been major efforts on our part, particularly after the March JETRO and EDB and the embassy's efforts on a trade seminar which was held over here in Tokyo. Since then, following inquiries, the embassy supplied information to the prospective importers. Sure, on the agricultural side, the main items definitely will be sugar. The embassy has been very much involved in providing information, in seeking markets, in finding what the demand is, and we have supplied all this information to EDB and NMA over the past few months.
Well, pawpaw, for instance, I understand the demand in the Japanese market is virtually unlimited.
Yes, our papaya, there's certainly a great demand for it, particularly the solo type. And we have recently been trying to organize something on a large scale with such companies as Kawasaki, but unfortunately, largely because we have not been able to get a suitable joint venture partner from Fiji, this scheme has not got off the ground. What we are getting up until the recent two hurricanes have been really efforts from small growers marketing their papaya through NMA. But this is an area that I feel that with a large-scale scheme developed between a prospective importer here in relation with a joint venture partner in Fiji or in connection with a few other growers, this is an area that we certainly have a lot of potential.
Fiji can take advantage of exports such as pet food that is cleaned by PEFCO. What is the response in this direction?
Well, the pet food you refer to, which is a joint venture between PEFCO and the Fiji government, this is in fact our most successful example of a joint venture in Fiji. The demand over here is very much in favor of Fiji. We are, I understand, the largest supplier of this particular pet food. The brand here is known as Mimi. The amount that Fiji exported to Tokyo, to Japan last year was in excess of 1.5 million. And I understand from the company here, Ito, that for 1995, we are likely to export much more.
What about trade inquiries? Do you receive many in this field?
We receive trade inquiries every day, and we have in the office a marketing officer who is a Japanese local staff member. He receives inquiries and we send the information to Fiji, and if questions should be asked, if we can supply the answers here, we do that. The inquiries are mainly aimed at our tropical products, but such things as passion fruit. We just done a recent survey, and there is a great demand for passion fruit juice. We have done a survey on this. This has been sent to EDB, and hopefully if we can supply what is required here in Japan, this is an area that could be developed. The EDB JETRO Trade and Investment Exhibition I referred to earlier, early last year, was really just for Fiji. But following that, it was felt over here by JETRO officials and certainly supported by the embassy, that for one small island nation to penetrate the market here, we don't seem to have sufficient items. What we have then been doing is working very closely with JETRO and with SPEC. The director of SPEC and I have worked very closely on this, trying to establish a trade promotion exhibition here for the Forum Island nations. And we were to have one this year, but because of the costs involved in the transport of the items concerned, the director of SPEC has decided that we should aim next year, and hopefully by August, September of 1986, we will be able to have something launched here in Tokyo. Investment is an area that takes up a lot of our time. Unfortunately, it's an area that we have not been very successful, because many of the projects that have been put forward by EDB seeking joint partners here have been a bit small. Sometimes the projects are not as well documented. The two areas that seem to have been most successful have been areas relating to the sale of Pacific Harbor, New development. These projects are very well developed, very well documented, and we have no problem in identifying Japanese companies that are interested in these large-scale developments.
The Fiji ambassador in Tokyo, Mr. Joe Gibson.
Isa-isa volangila sa dino, namula ko nararawakina, bababeka ko amai takawa, namula ko nasenga nilasa. Sana kodoe na mataka Bauna numa Nananda tolasa Mai suba nanuma tikonga Vanwarong mo nalomo ni vanua Sana kodoe na mataka Bauna numa nanonggurarawa Niko sana hodoe na mataka Paunanuma nanongatolasa Mai suva nanumajikonga Mai suva nanumajikonga
Sombolei lia Auna soko wasayanive iko isalei lia Awangara namumatani riva Monongo isaki eveisinga Selva taki wale andilia Olei lia Isalei lia Sombolei lia Auna soko wasayanive iko isalei lia Nanomulenga kosomangiwai Ausenga nilo matarawamai Vuni nongulenga andilia Oilei lia Isalei lia Sombolei lia Auna soko wasayanive iko isalei lia Auna soko wasayanive iko isalei lia Sombolei